This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Every so often, a writer comes along who doesn't just tell historical stories. He makes the past feel immediate, dangerous, and deeply human. Robert Harris is one of those writers. From Fatherland and Enigma to the Cicero trilogy, An Officer and a Spy, Conclave, he has spent decades turning pivotal moments in history into page-turning fiction that millions of readers trust. Now he returns to the world of ancient Rome with his newest novel, Agrippa. This is the story of Marcus Agrippa, the brilliant general, master engineer, and lifelong right-hand man to Augustus. The man who helped win the civil wars, built the infrastructure of empire, and spent much of his life carefully remaining in the shadows. It's a novel about power, loyalty, friendship, and the quiet price of standing just behind the throne. And few writers are better equipped to tell it than Robert Harris. I hope you guys enjoyed today's conversation. A quick word from our sponsors.
Hi, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending, zero tears.
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Robert, welcome to the show.
Hi, Peter. Very good to be with you.
So I kind of want to start off with this fun question because having kind of grown up with your books, do you ever feel like you're a time traveler with like a free pass and you're kind of free to go to any period you want with your stories?
I do feel like that, actually, yes. I mean, a lot of writers, when they finish writing about themselves or their early obsessions, they then resort to foreign travel, like Graham Greene or Somerset Maugham. They go to the Far East, they go to Africa or the Caribbean. And I just go to different eras, really. And that's, I do feel myself to be a time traveler. I like to land on a foreign shore in a different era and learn all I can about it and turn it into a book. And it's been a great pleasure, actually. Been going on now for 34 years, I think, since Fatherland came out. 17 novels now.
Wow. When you do this travel, right? If we frame it that way, are there any places where you feel the most at home when it comes to traveling with your books?
Well, I do like, this is Agrippa is my fifth Roman novel. So I think that is a place where I do feel particularly at home. Ever since Pompeii, I spent 2 years researching Pompeii. I learned a lot about Roman life, customs. And when I came to the end of that book, I had been a political journalist. I'd always wanted to write a political novel. I thought, why don't I write about Cicero in the ancient world, ancient Rome, and do it as a kind of West Wing on the Tiber, a political procedural. So that was another 3 books. Took me about 10 years in order to write the 3 parts of the Cicero trilogy. And now I've come on with Agrippa. So I'd say that is a particular favorite of mine, but I have done other periods, 19th century France, 20th century England, and indeed 17th century America in active oblivion. So I've been all over the place.
I love that. So, Agrippa, what made this seem like the perfect time to tell this story?
Well, I first came across Agrippa 20-odd years ago when I was writing Pompeii, which, as you may know, centers on the aqueduct which ran around the town, ran around Vesuvius and brought water to all the people in at the Bay of Naples. And I discovered that had been built, it's 60 miles long. It was the longest aqueduct in the Roman world, but had been built in 18 months by Marcus Agrippa using 30,000 demobbed legionaries from after the Battle of Philippi. So he crossed my radar, and then when I came to write the Cicero trilogy, he comes in at the end because he was the best friend of Octavius, who was the heir who was left by Caesar, or Julius Caesar left him his property and his name. And he was 18, and he arrived in Italy to claim his inheritance, accompanied by another 18-year-old and his best friend Agrippa. And I suddenly thought, this guy is worth a novel. I mean, we really don't know very much about him. We know he had this stellar career. He built the navy. He won the Battle of Actium. He was consul 3 times. He was co-ruler of the Roman world. But he left behind no speech, no letter. He never triumphed. He's the classic sort of silent consigliere, really. So I thought there must be more to him than that, and that's why I wrote the novel.
So, what you kind of touched upon this in my next question, there really isn't a lot out there in his own words. Did that make it more difficult for you, or did it kind of free you up a little bit more?
It's freed me up a lot, actually, Peter. I mean, Cicero, we're drowning in work writings by Cicero. You know, we sometimes know what he was doing hourly, thinking hourly, which is astonishing. With Agrippa, we know his public deeds and dates and battles and so on, his date of birth, more or less. At least we know March 63 BC. And we know he died at about the age of 50, or just maybe 51. But of his inner life, we know nothing. As I say, it's a blank page, and that is a benefit, actually, because it means I can look at his career and I can try to imagine what his relationships must have been like, in particular with Octavius, who later became the Emperor Augustus. And it enables me to flesh out that friendship. It's a kind of buddy movie, or almost the ultimate buddy movie. It's how 2 teenagers took over the world, and how they did it, and how their friendship worked. And also he had 3 marriages, Agrippa, 2 of them highly political, one to Augustus's niece, the other to Augustus's only child, his daughter Julia. He was the sort of how can I put it, the sort of stud, in a way, of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, because both Julius Caesar and his great nephew, Augustus, they don't seem to have been able to produce male childs. They both just produced one daughter called Julia, which was no good at all in those days. They needed someone who could produce male heirs, and that, in the end, that duty fell to Agrippa. So it's a really interesting story. There's a lot of battles, a lot of tactics, a lot of building, a lot of politics, and also quite a lot of personal relations.
How do you go about getting into the head of this character? When I read your books, it always seems like you're just so in tune with these characters. And so how did you prepare for this one? When you sat down every day to write, you have to kind of make yourself be in his head in a sense. How does one do that?
Well, I like writing books first person, and so that this book takes the form of a memoir. I imagine him writing at the end of his life, the rather tired old soldier by then, looking back over his life. And the first real thing that you then have to do, which is one of the reasons I like the first person as a narrative form, is that you have to get into character, like an actor, really. So what we do, the little glimpses and scraps we have of Agrippa, we know he was not a man for poetry and oratory. He was blunt, practical, an engineer almost as much as he was a soldier. So I tried to give him that kind of voice. The sentences in the book are short. The paragraphs are often only a line or two. He's direct. And that, I feel, is part of his character. No nonsense, a doer rather than a thinker. And that's what I try to bring to the book. And it was a great pleasure for me, because as he got older, it starts with his birth. As he gets older, I felt I got to know him better.
That's the thing. Whenever I speak to authors and historians or biographers that spend such a long time with a character, Yeah, I get kind of two different stories. Sometimes it's like you almost feel bad letting them go, when you have to kill off the character. And sometimes I hear from authors when they're like, he was exhausting. I couldn't let him go. It was time to move on. How do you feel at the end of this one?
Um, I was sorry to kill him off, but on the other hand, as he reflects himself, he has lived the lives of 50 men, really. I mean, he's just the thing about Agrippa, his name incidentally came from a contraction of meaning difficult birth, Agrippatum. Uh, his mother died giving birth to him, so he carried that name around with him all his life, Agrippa, which is itself a bit of a mark to carry through life. So that from that point on, we follow him through the schoolyard, through his friendship, unlikely friendship with the aristocratic Octavius, because the thing about Agrippa is we also know very little about his family background, except that it was plebeian. It was the lowest rank of Roman society, just above slaves. So he didn't come from wealth or anything like that. And so, how did this friendship of his and Caesar's Octavius come about? What was the basis of it? And so you start to explore what would be plausible, and then he goes into the army, and so on and so on and so on. He meets Julius Caesar, fights in Spain at the Battle of Munda, the last battle that Caesar ever fought. We're pretty sure that Agrippa did do that when he was about 17. And so there's so much in his life by the time I've finished it, and all these other characters, Mark Antony, Cleopatra, and so on. Um, you felt he had done enough. I mean, I didn't feel it was sad that he died. I think he would only have had a sort of dwindling into old age existence. So he went out when he was still pretty vigorous.
As you're doing this research, was there ever a moment where you kind of almost like took your glasses off and you became a fan of history, where it stopped you and you're like, oh, this is cool? When you thought to yourself, like, I'm a fan now. I'm not just a writer or researcher.
Yeah, that does happen actually. It's a very exciting moment when you think, it must have been something like this. In a way, I'm guessing about the past, and the past is pretty remote, and the Romans are fairly remote, and a book that was completely authentic about ancient Rome would be unreadable. And the problem is if you write a readable book, it risks being completely inauthentic. But there are just moments when you think, I guess that's how it must have been. And for me, they were some of the big set pieces, which, I mean, take, for instance, the Battle of Actium, which I had heard of, obviously, and I knew that that was when the forces of Octavius, naval forces, finally defeated Antony and Cleopatra, and that was the hinge. That was the one of the great turning points in world history. That settled who would dominate the Roman world. But the way that the battle was fought, the tactics and how it developed, is not something that I knew. And I had to learn it and research it, and then put myself on the heaving deck of the boat with Agrippa. And that's very exciting because you feel, in a way, you can feel the spray in your face and the thump of the hammer beating and the rowing, and then and the clash and the battle and that went on all day, and the extraordinary tactics and so on. Uh, that was very thrilling to write that, and those are the moments when I really look forward to writing, because you have to switch on your imagination and you're trying to communicate that to the reader. If you can't see it and feel it and believe it, then they won't. And that is very thrilling. And that's the best part of the job, actually.
Speaking of scene making, so much of your work has been transformed into movies, television. Do you ever think in terms of perhaps like movie scenes as you're writing this in your own head?
No, I don't. I certainly never write a book with a film in mind. I write my books, and I've been fortunate; quite a lot of them have been made. But that's just how it's gone. It's not something I've deliberately gone to do. I think I am a very visual writer or tactile writer. I like to go into a room and give the reader a feel of what it's like and walk across the room. And I think in that sense, they do sometimes feel like a camera really moving through the history, moving through particular meetings or battles or whatever. And I think that that's just my style. I wrote a scene in my last novel, Precipice, where the heroine, as it were, is in a taxi and goes to the hospital where she has to work in the First World War in London. And she pays the taxi man, and then the taxi draws away and she looks up at the hospital. And I realized after I'd written that scene that I had actually just written a piece of film, cinema, really. That is a classic, you know. So, but then the other hand, that's what we've all done. We've paid a taxi, we've arrived somewhere, the taxi's driven off, and you look at the building. So, you know, we've all got cinema, we've all got visual moving images in our heads now. And to a degree, I think that has to influence the way that you write.
With that in mind, your last book was amazing as well. That one I felt like because you went through all those letters in Precipice, like that must have taken a while to try to pick up like which ones do you go with? Was that tough?
Yes, it was. I mean, I wanted to write a big political novel, and I thought about writing about the whole of the Asquith family, Asquith being the prime minister in 1914, because the family was very colourful and interesting. But then I realised that the most interesting thing was that this guy had an affair with this woman 30 odd years younger than him. Incredibly risky affair. Not only that, it was at its height as Britain went to war in 1914 and through until for the next 9 or 10 months until May 1915. And so you have all these epic events going on, and this slide from the peaceful world over the edge of the precipice into war. And at the same time, he's having this incredibly risky affair. Yeah, so at least that narrowed it down to the letters from that particular time. And it was useful because the letters, we have um, hundreds of letters that he wrote to her because she saved them all. We don't have any letters that she wrote to him, although she must have written hundreds. He burnt them all when the affair ended. So I thought, why don't I reconstruct her letters? And so it was like a tennis match. I could see one set of
Oh, I
strokes
love that.
at one end, and now it was my job to come around the other side of the net and do the replies. And that was, again, you say, what's the pleasure of writing these novels? That's the pleasure. She must have said something like this because from his letters to her, we knew what she might have written to him. So that was great. It was a real feeling of reconstruction.
Coming back to Agrippa here, i- if you could pick any person, if you could cast this movie, right? And you're not at all confined to a time period. So you could go back to early Hollywood cinema, 1920s, 30s. Can you think of who would play this role?
Well, what do we know about Agrippa physically? We do have a very good statues of him, one in particular. We know he was brooding, heavy, thick set, looked like a heavyweight boxer, really. The opposite of the feeble kind of Octavius, who was nothing like his statues. Um, so I think that's the sort of actor you'd want. A kind of, if you could take him through the ages, a kind of George C. Scott sort of playing Patton would be he's that sort of, he's a very male man and a very macho. He's a fighter. I mean, he got into the front line. He was on, he fought at sea. He was, he was a tough guy. So that sort of an actor um, would do the part really well. And you can think of several who are like that.
So my last question, and because I assume you're super busy with the researching and writing, but what does Robert Harris read for fun? Do you have time to read for fun?
Well, that's a good question, Peter. Because the books are so detailed and research, and that's not a chore to me, that's a pleasure. That does consume a lot of my reading time. I mean, each book comes with a list of maybe 30 or 40 books I've had to read in order to get up to speed to write it. So that takes up a lot of my time. My real pleasure is diaries and letters. I love reading unmediated voice of people in the past. So collections of letters and diaries that haven't gone through the hands of a historian or a biographer, where you can hear the voice of the person, and you know what's going to happen to them maybe, and they don't know what's going to happen to them. I find that very rewarding, and I'm an addict. I'm always collecting volumes of diaries and letters. I mean, I think they're great. I prefer reading, if I'm honest, nonfiction to fiction. I think maybe I didn't used to be like that, but I think now that that's how I earn my living, I find it harder to read novels without kind of just seeing the way it's all being done. I'm too much of a technician now to quite appreciate it. Diaries, letters, that's what I like, and I recommend them.
You mentioned this. When I speak to different authors, they do say that some people say it's difficult for them to read if they write mystery or if they write historical fiction. It's difficult for them to read other people's work because they can't switch off the writer in them. Kind of what you're touching upon right now. And all of a sudden, you're reading it critically when you're like, no, I'm trying to enjoy it, and they have a very hard time switching that off.
That is true. And also, if you're actually in the process of thinking about a new book or writing it, there's always a danger that it might affect your own style. That you don't want to imitate someone, even subconsciously. So but I do like novels. I mean, I read them on holiday, I mean, I enjoy them. But if I'm honest, I'd have to say that I don't read as many as I used to before I started writing novels myself.
Amazing. Well, Robert, this was truly a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Cozy season is ahead, and you'll be spending way more time inside. Is your home ready? Don't worry. With Wayfair, you can upgrade your space without breaking the bank. Score up to 70% off during their Labor Day clearance on furniture, area rugs, mattresses, and more. Plus, surprise flash deals you can't miss. Whether it's one room or the whole house, Wayfair has pieces for every style and budget.
Shop Wayfair's Labor Day clearance now through September 7th at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Are you noticing your car insurance rate creep up even without tickets or claims? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry handles the legwork by comparing quotes side by side from over 50 top insurers so you can confidently hit buy. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Jerry even tracks rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Don't settle for higher rates. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/libsyn today. That's jerry.ai/libsyn.
Do you hear that? That sound, right? That means that summer's officially here. It means that grown adults just sprint into the street for a frozen dessert shaped like a cartoon. But this summer, Mint Mobile has a better treat. Every plan, including unlimited, is $15 a month. And unlike ice cream, it won't drip down your wrist or look nothing like the picture. Does anyone have any cash?
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. New customer offer for initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.